Hello, my sweet friends. What's up and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's eyeshadow palette extravaganza. This is going to be for the month of March. I bought 10, yes, 10 eyeshadow palettes during the month of March. I know, I have an issue and we're going to talk about them today. A couple of them I've already talked about. Some of them I haven't. So if you're interested in seeing not only what eyeshadows I picked up during the month of March, but how they worked for me, then just keep on watching. So I'm not going to go in any particular order. This is not a ranking video. This is simply showing you all of the eyeshadow palettes I bought and just kind of giving you a quick rundown on how they worked for me, whether I liked them or not. Just a spoiler alert, I'm just going to tell you that March had absolutely no duds in the way of eyeshadow palettes. This was such a bomb month for me. In the way of palettes. Now, some of these are brand new. Some of them had been out for a few weeks and I was just barely picking them up. One was out for a few months actually. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this. Again, no particular order. Let's start with the Viseart Paris Love Letter palette. You've already heard me talk about this several times over the course of this month, so unless you are new, then you already know how I feel about this, so I won't spend too much time in it, but everything about this packaging, everything about this palette, I absolutely love. It had been a hot minute since I'd purchased a Viseart palette, and I'm so glad that I looped back around and picked this one up. I was actually drawn in by the packaging, surprise, surprise. It's got the little hearts all over it. It's just really, really pretty. The detail was perfect on this one. And I was also drawn in by the green shade in here, which I expected to be a dud based on what I was hearing. And oh my gosh, maybe it's because I had low expectations. I don't know. Everything about this palette worked out so well for me. The mattes are so blendable. They're what I remembered to be great from Viseart. Just they're buildable. They're not so intense that you can actually go like too heavy-handed right off the bat. They do take building, but that is what I remember from Viseart mattes. As far as the satiny shadows, I don't think anything's like super foiled in this palette, but the more satiny, to me, the standout shades are lovely. They are so romantic. They are also buildable. They work best when you use them with a finger, so heads up. I feel like when I use a brush, it's a little bit more frustrating because you don't, as with any palette, with a metallic, a foil, a satin, if you don't use your finger, you don't get as much as quickly. For me, that is frustrating. So that's why I always use a finger, but so pretty. I love, love, love this palette. This green, again, I thought was going to be the dud. It just packs such a punch on my eye and they don't swatch the best. I've told y'all that before. They look kind of lackluster and just light, but once you put them on the eye, there is a different story to be told. And then I have to say, and I've said it again, I've said it before over the course of this month, but this lavender is like a gray lavender, nothing like it in my collection. Beautiful. And at this point, I love it when I come across something that I really don't have much of, if at all, in my collection. And that was such a great find. So very happy with this eyeshadow palette. If you've been on the fence, I would just weigh out what you're looking for in a palette, whether soft and romantic, whether you want something that builds super quickly. That'll help you make your decision right there. Next, I picked up the Wars Mandalorian palette. Finally got my hands on this one. Every time I wanted to pick it up, I was like, okay, well, I want the free shipping, so I'm gonna wait till there's a new release because we know with Colourpop that won't be long. And every time I'd go to order a new release and add this one to my cart, it'd be sold out. So anyways, finally hit it at the right time and was able to get my hands on it. And wow, I love this palette so much. So many people, the times that I have used this palette, so many people have asked me what I'm wearing on my eyes. And it's just, it's fun to use. It's beautiful in its color story. I love, you guys know, I love my greens. I love my olive tones. This is just a beautiful palette if you like that kind of color story. So obviously it has to speak to people who love these types of shades, but let me just tell you, if you do, then you are in for a super treat. The only thing is, I will tell you that the Force shade right here is, you know those Melt Cosmetics that sometimes they pack them in, they make the pan too full so it looks puffy and then it explodes? That's what this is looking like right here. So not sure how long that's gonna last, but overall, this palette is absolutely stunning and it's a color story I would expect to see from a brand at Sephora. Like, just as far as, I don't know, this color story, to get it at this price point, I'm like, wow, it's so amazing. But Why am I surprised? It's Colourpop, and I just love it. If you've been on the fence with this palette, pick it up. It's really, really great. And it's funny because I ordered it. It was one of the ones that was excluded always from their sales. As soon as I ordered it, it started going on sale. Let's see, e.l.f. and Chipotle. I am not a food and makeup type of, like the collaborations. I'm like, yeah, no, there's brands that do like the hamburgers and the pizza and all that. And that just never appeals to me. And quite frankly, I don't know that this one would have either, except that then I watched Juicy Jazz's video. I know. Seems to be the recurring theme these days that I watch her videos and then I spend money. But anyways, and I'm so glad I picked this one up. This was such a good palette. e.l.f., not as a brand, but e.l.f. eyeshadows can be very hit or miss for me. I feel like more often than not, they're a dud just for what I like in an eyeshadow. And so I did like their little bite-sized mint eyeshadow palettes. And then I loved the Retro Paradise palette. Aside from that, I've just been kind of, you know, this is a good palette. This is just something I would expect, quite frankly, from high end. And it's so funny how they've laid it out like you would find the layout when you go through the Chipotle, you know, line. And the only thing that I didn't like is that the names came on it wasn't even on an insert. It was like on an overlay that wrapped around the palette, like it's literal packaging that you throw away. That's where the names were located. So, and I wasn't going to hold on to that. So that being said, I can remember a few shades, but not a whole lot. Anyways, I feel like what takes the cake for me in this palette are the standout metallic shimmer shades. They pack such a punch. They look so pretty on the eyes. They look, again, like you would find this kind of thing at Sephora. And I just was so surprised that it was the price point that it was. And it was a little higher than, well, I don't know. I feel like Retro Paradise was around that price point, but I think it was like $16. But I think that's a really decent price. Now, I'm not trying to press this palette just because I know it's no longer available. Although if you really want something, you can always hunt it down, you know, going the eBay route or whatever, as long as you're careful on the seller. But this was a really good palette. Now, the mattes are a little drier than what I'm used to, but then again, it's also because lately I've been used to using super velvety, soft matte shades, but that's okay. They still blend really easily, go on the eye really nicely. And again, I like the color story. It was kind of a given the line layout at the restaurant, but very happy I picked this one up. So that was a definite score for the month of March. Okay, this next one, when I gave my haul update, I was kind of lackluster on this one. Like I wasn't feeling it. It's the BH Cosmetics Mimosa palette. And so there was something about it that I just wasn't reaching for it. And I don't know why. Sometimes there is just that thing where a palette will call a makeup item will call your name and that makes you want to use it, or it won't and you leave it there, which it's kind of like, well, then why did I buy this to begin with? When I first saw it, I was absolutely mesmerized. And then once I brought it home, it was like not so much. And that's the hard part about not being able to swatch in store and really open things up in stores, because it was kind of a quick peek and I didn't want to, you know, I don't want to break the rules or anything. So I'm trying to be mindful of not touching stuff and, you know, definitely can't swatch. So it was kind of like I saw a quick peek of the inside and then I was like, oh, it's beautiful. And then I brought it home and I really opened it up and I was like, but that all changed. So I kind of just decided, all right, I'm going to leave everything else alone and I'm going to go in with this palette only. I'm just going to take a few days to just thoroughly enjoy this palette. Let's see. Is it really not calling my name? Oh my goodness. It was the best thing I could have done because I fell so in love with this palette. It is so vivid. It's so beautiful, which this is my type of color story. So it seemed weird to begin with that I wasn't super drawn to it once I bought it and brought it home, but it is lovely. Now, I think what really disappointed me the first time I used it is that a couple of these metallic shades, I know the BH Cosmetic formula, as far as the metallic formula to be like a thicker formula. And in being a thicker formula, it goes on super mega rock star on my eyes. Like, I mean, it looks like it's punching you from my eye. So weird. Anyways, but these were almost like a thinner consistency, like a topper. And you guys know it has to be a very amazing shade for me to love a topper shade. And that's what kind of turned me off. I was like, they're thinner, they're not what I expected. I don't know. I started using it. The mattes make up for everything in this palette. And I'm going to tell you my very favorite is this one right here, this little lilac pink shade. I used this as a lid shade at one point and I was absolutely just blown away. I was like, I love how this looks. It's so girly, it's so Barbie, it's just pretty. And they go on, the mattes in typical BH fashion go on so nicely, so pigmented. Let me give you one of the little metallics. So here's this one. So they swatch kind of nice, but especially that champagne shade just doesn't do it for me. But like I said, all it took was really playing with the mattes for a few days and I was like, I love this palette. I'm so glad I bought it. So anyways, definite win. I am so glad that a lot of times the beginning doesn't tell the whole story. And even though I wasn't such a fan, even when I did my haul update, boy, am I a fan now. That one's a good, I was gonna say good and great at the same time. Anyways, so the next one is the Natasha Denona Circo Loco palette. If I say one thing about this palette, it is going to be the following. This is my favorite Natasha Denona palette of life ever. As in, this is the one and only for me. I love this palette so much. I feel like that's a very surprising claim because it's very not every day for a lot of people. This is everything and more in what I want in an eyeshadow, what I love in an eyeshadow. So the packaging, I'm so glad she did it different this time. It's got a little design on it. It's not just the, you know, one color, which is usually fine because that color goes with the theme or the, you know, color story of that palette. But this right here. And then, oh my gosh, I love the blue on the back. Okay. This palette, it's like my name is written in this palette. I don't know where to start. The unique shades in this palette, again, kind of what I was talking earlier, it's rare that there is something either I don't have in my collection or I have very little of. And this just gave me several things that I don't have in my collection. That's first. Second, the metallic finish in a couple of these is absolutely mind-blowing. As in, I don't have any kind of metallic that shines this much in my collection. That's number 2. 3, the array of different shades. You guys know I am about the brights, I am about the bolds, I'm about the neons. This color story is absolutely for me, and I find that they pair so well. When you look at it, yes, it's a little bit like, I don't know what I would do with that. Once you start playing and digging, once you start pairing stuff together, it's like, I didn't know this could go together, and it looks so good. Everything in this palette is up to par with Natasha Denona's quality. In fact, I think more so, but you know, maybe I'm a little biased because at this point I could just tell you this is like my favorite palette of all time, but it's absolutely beautiful. If you've been on the fence and you like this kind of color story, don't think twice about it. Just wait for the sale and grab it. It is limited edition. Let me tell you about a few shades real quick. Razzle Dazzle, stunning. Doesn't look like a whole lot. You put it on the eyes and the sparkle that is built into this shade is absolutely like pop, 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 pop. It reminds me of like Pop Rocks in sparkle form. It's absolutely just mesmerizing. So again, from where you're sitting, probably doesn't look like much except a berry shade, but on the eyes, I'm telling you. Okay, let me give you Snow Cone. Beautiful. It's got this just icy blue that's like a baby blue. It's so, so pretty. It's unique. It's just, oh, I could go on and on about this palette. Let's go into Aerialist because this one looks like a straight up silver, and that's what I thought it was until I started playing with it. And no, it's not. It's got a lilac type of tone. I'm telling you, I have nothing like that in my collection. Everything about this palette is just absolutely, it's stunning. It's fun to play with. It's just beautiful on the eyes. I have found that a couple of these, like, so Cotton Candy looks super light in the pan. Once you start putting it on the eye, it's a slightly deeper shade than what you see. I actually really like that because that means I don't have to build as much. It's just beautiful. I can't speak this palette's praises enough. This is absolutely worth the price that I paid for it. And I am so happy that she did something different like that. I don't think in a million years I expected something that different from the brand. So let's move into BH Cosmetics BFF palette. I've already talked about this in my haul update. I love this palette. This palette was such a surprise in the sense that I wasn't planning on picking it up. Again, same old story. I saw Juicy Jazz at Ulta. She did an Ulta video and the stock photos never spoke to me, but I saw her film it in real life and I was like, oh, that looks kind of pretty. And I went and picked it up at my Ulta and I was like, this is why YouTube makes me spend money. Anyways, the packaging is heftier than you would anticipate from a BH palette. It's beautiful. It's sturdy in the hands. I love the gold or the rose gold. It's just very, very pretty. And then the inside. The pan sizes are smaller. They remind me of like the, I feel like I have a palette called Take Me to Brazil or something along those lines, super bright shades. And they are kind of small, somewhat like this. But that doesn't bother me. There is a lot to go around in here and it is so pretty. It packs a punch. It's everything you would expect from a BH Cosmetics palette. The metallics in here are kind of what I expected to be in the Mimosa palette. They are that rich, thicker type of metallic shade that just gives you that intensity that you know and love. And there are just some absolutely beautiful shades in here. You guys know I love giving swatches of the metallics because that's what I gravitate towards. That is my kind of that's my kind of shade. But I give you one matte. Beautiful, pigmented, easy to work with. This was such a gem, such a find. Not that it was a find, it was kind of handed to me by watching it on somebody else's video. But $25 and I used a $3.50 Ulta coupon. Look how stunning that is. I mean, that's almost like on camera, that's almost as metallic as the Natasha Denona. I'm not saying they compare, but I'm saying it's absolutely beautiful. For the price tag, this is amazing quality. So glad I picked it up. It's those that you don't plan on picking up that then you do that you're like, oh, I love this. Okay, we're down to our last few. Lizzie McGuire by Colourpop. You guys, I can't even tell you, first off, without even going into the eyeshadows, I can't tell you how much the feels that this palette gives me. This brings out my inner 90s child. I grew up in the 90s, and so for me, childhood is everything. Lizzie McGuire, Backstreet Boys. Now, granted, I want to say, I have to take a step back. I want to say she was early 2000s, which, don't get me wrong, I was in high school and still loved watching Lizzie McGuire, but it brings out my 90s child because it reminds me of growing up with Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears. There's so much. I feel like that seems like a lifetime ago. And I feel like the world is so different now. It makes me want to cry, just how different things are. Worlds apart, honestly. But this right here, you guys. I loved watching Lizzie McGuire on the Disney Channel. It was everything. And I remember when the movie came out, I was like, oh. I actually have that one on DVD. Was just watching it the other day when I found out this was going to release. But if you are a fan, this is going to speak to the Lizzie McGuire fan, obviously. I mean, unless you're a Colourpop fan and you're really going for this type of color story, I think it's a given that this is going to appeal more to the Lizzie McGuire fan. I was surprised it didn't sell out so quickly. I think it may even still be in stock. A lot of people were disappointed with the color story, said Colourpop could have done more. I, for one, love this color story. I will tell you, this is the palette I have used the least out of all of these because it's the one that came in last. I have used it twice at this point. It is what I'm wearing on my eyes today. It's beautiful. I love, love, love this palette. It gives me all of the girly vibes. It is rich in pigmentation for the types of shades that they are, because these types of shades, you know, usually they're a little harder to work with. Usually, especially these like, what is this, citrine type of shades, chartreuse type of shade, whatever. They're usually like take more building up. I just find this palette so easy to work with. I find it girly. I find it fresh and just It's pretty, and it gives me Lizzie McGuire feels. So I love this palette. I just got to tell you, the names, spot on. I love them. Like, they bring a smile to my face. I love this palette. The detail in it is beautiful from the flowers. It's got little Lizzie McGuire there, and she's on, I don't want to blind you, but she's on the mirror in here. It's stunning. I love it. Let me give you a couple of swatches. I just realized I'm like talking about it. It does have a pressed glitter. I know. Don't come for me, but I like those pressed glitters. So here we go. Super, like, this is super 90s to me. I love it. I think they did a good job. I mean, I think people were saying that it could have used more depth and stuff, but I don't know. Like, we were girls when this show was, you know, even in high school. At that point in time, early 2000s, 90s and early 2000s, a lot of us truly were still girls, you know, had a lot of that innocence still going on, and I love this palette. So last three are the Bambi palettes. These are beautiful. I will say though, I think they were a little overpriced for Colourpop. I was very surprised when I had seen the price point. I think they were, if I remember correctly, I want to say they were $15 each, which is quite surprising. And I think you're paying for the Disney brand, for the Disney artwork and everything, which I get, but it was a little disappointing to buy them. And then, like, literally a few days from releasing, Disney or Colourpop had a sale, and these were part of that sale. And I was like, ugh, like my heart just hurts. Anyways, so Flower, Thumper, and Bambi are the themes of each of these, and it is truly its own little color story. So this one is Flower, and then here is Thumper, which is kind of that green mauve, and then Bambi obviously being the neutral one of the bunch. They perform well. They're very nice. You do have a more limited, it's obviously a 5-pan palette, so you're more limited in your options, but that also takes a lot of the decision out of it so that you just go, you know, with one and just pop and go. So very pretty, very pigmented, easy to work with, same Colourpop fashion, no chinsing out on quality here. For me, you guys, it's all about the Disney packaging. You know my love for Disney. So once you pair Disney and makeup, I mean, for me, it's a match made in heaven. I really did enjoy each one of these. The only thing is the price point that I hesitate on telling you, yes, you have to pick them up. Okay, my friends, that brings us to the end of today's video. 10 palettes. That was a lot to go through, but oh, eyeshadow palettes are my very favorite thing to talk about, to buy, to use. And I hope it is the same for you and that you share my same joy for this type of product. And I hope that this in some way, shape, or form helped you in your quest for purchasing that next eyeshadow palette. Before I let you go, I do want to give you just a very quick verse of the day to motivate you, encourage you, and tell you that Jesus loves you. Today's comes from Romans 14:8, and it says, "If we live, it's to honor the Lord. And if we die, it's to honor the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord." It is my very prayer that you can see Christ through me, that I just, you know, that is my goal, to live for him and to die for him too. You know, ultimately I belong to him, and that is the very joy of my life. It is the very honor of my life. So it is my plea to you that if you don't already know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that he would make himself so real to you. He's different than anything you've ever experienced. He is just such a gentleman. I can't speak his praises enough, truly. And so it is my prayer that if you are in a place of hardship, of pain, if you feel a void in your heart, that he would speak to your heart and just make his peace and love so evident to you that you would know that it only is coming from him. Alrighty, my friends, so that brings us to the end of today's video. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Until the next one, please stay safe and stay well, and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.